I want to start by telling you a harsh truth. You're trying to change who you are just to make people like you. You talk about your achievements to impress people, but they see you as arrogant. You try to be overly nice to everyone, it comes across as fake. You constantly try to be funny, but it feels forced. You always agree with whatever the other person says, and they end up seeing you as boring. And the most painful part is this. Deep down, you can feel that something isn't right. You notice that people keep their distance from you, but you can never quite figure out why. The reason is that being likable isn't about putting on a performance. It's about sending the right signals. Right now, your brain is sending the wrong signals to the other person's brain. But when you send the right ones, people naturally start gravitating toward you. You don't even have to perform anymore. Today, I'm going to show you the psychological principles that make people genuinely like you. These aren't shallow tips like do this or say that. What I'm about to share is based on scientifically validated principles that directly influence how the brain makes social decisions. And once you understand them, the way you navigate social situations can completely change. The 7-second rule: how first impressions are formed. First, you need to understand one important truth. People make up their minds about you within the first 7 seconds, and in most cases, that first impression rarely changes. Research by psychologist Alexander Todorov at Princeton University clearly demonstrates this. Participants were shown photos of people's faces for just 100 milliseconds, and in that tiny fraction of a second, they had already formed judgments about trustworthiness, competence, and likability. What's even more surprising is that these snap judgments were almost identical to the judgments people made after observing the same person for a much longer time. In other words, before you've even said a single word, the other person's brain is already scanning you and placing you into a mental category. So what exactly is it looking for? Here's the key insight. According to research by Amy Cuddy from Harvard Business School, when your brain evaluates someone, it asks 2 questions in this exact order. First, can I trust this person? Second, is this person competent? And that order is incredibly important. Warmth, meaning trust, always comes first. If someone sees you as highly competent but cold, they'll perceive you as a threat. But if they see you as warm and approachable, they'll naturally feel drawn to you, even if they don't think you're exceptionally skilled. In other words, you don't have to prove that you're smart, successful, or funny to make people like you. All you need to do first is show that you're warm and trustworthy. So how do you send that signal? The first 7 seconds are shaped by 3 key factors. The first is your facial expression, a genuine smile. And I mean genuine. In psychology, it's called a Duchenne smile. It's not just your lips smiling, your eyes smile too. With a fake smile, only the mouth moves while the eyes remain cold. And the human brain subconsciously detects that difference almost instantly. But when the brain sees a Duchenne smile, it begins releasing oxytocin, the hormone associated with trust and social bonding, which helps create a stronger connection between people. The second factor is your body language. Crossing your arms, looking at your phone, or hunching your shoulders sends the message, I want to keep my distance. An open posture with your chest facing the other person and your hands visible signals, I'm open to you. You're safe with me. The brain reads these signals subconsciously and instantly categorizes you based on them. The third factor is eye contact. Too little eye contact signals insecurity or a lack of confidence. Too much eye contact can come across as threatening. The ideal balance is maintaining eye contact for about 60 to 70% of the conversation, especially while the other person is speaking. It sends a powerful message. I'm listening. I'm fully present with you. These 3 signals are the key to making a great first impression in the first 7 seconds. And the best part is, you can improve all of them with practice. We've built trust, but is that enough? Not quite. What if I told you that the strongest connections between people are often created by the subtle behaviors we unconsciously mirror? Mirroring. Now I'm going to show you one of the deepest psychological mechanisms behind human attraction and connection. In the 1990s, Italian neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti made a remarkable discovery. The same brain cells that fired when a monkey performed an action also fired when it watched another monkey perform that same action. In other words, the brain couldn't fully distinguish between doing an action and simply observing it. Humans have the same system, and it's one of the foundations of social connection. When the person you're with takes a sip of water, you suddenly feel like drinking too. When someone yawns, you yawn, and when someone smiles, you naturally find yourself smiling back. This automatic mirroring mechanism makes the brain think, this person is like me, and when the human brain perceives similarity, It naturally feels more trust and connection. Psychologists call this the similarity attraction effect. So, how can you use this consciously? Mirror the other person's body language, speaking pace, and energy level, but do it subtly. If they speak slowly and calmly, don't respond with rapid, high-energy speech. If they lean forward, wait a few seconds and then lean forward slightly as well. If they use a particular word or phrase, naturally include that same word or phrase in your response. But there's one very important warning. Don't overdo it. If the other person raises their arm and you immediately raise yours, that's not mirroring, it's imitation. And once people realize you're imitating them, it comes across as fake. The trust you've been building can disappear instantly. Mirroring should be subtle, natural, and slightly delayed, just like when two people laugh together without even realizing they're doing it. Research shows that when waiters repeat a customer's order back to them, for example, 1 chicken with a side of rice, right? Their tips increase by as much as 70%. They're simply mirroring the customer's words. As a result, the customer's brain receives the message, this person understands me. This person is really listening. That's how powerful mirroring can be. But there's an even simpler and even more powerful technique backed by neuroscience that can trigger an instant dopamine response in the human brain. The name effect. Years ago, Dale Carnegie said a person's name is the sweetest sound they can hear, and neuroscience has proven that he was right. Brain imaging studies show that when people hear their own name, it triggers a unique pattern of brain activity, different from the response to any other word. Your name is a special trigger for the brain because it immediately captures attention, creates an emotional connection, and sends the message, this person knows me. This person notices me. And yet, most people never use it. You meet someone, hear their name, and forget it 10 seconds later. Then you go through the entire conversation without saying their name even once. It's like ignoring a bar of gold sitting right in front of you. In practice, when you meet someone, repeat their name as soon as you hear it. For example, "Hi, I'm Emma. Nice to meet you, Emma." That simple repetition not only helps lock their name into your memory, but also instantly sends the other person the message, this person notices me. This person cares about me. Then, naturally use their name throughout the conversation. For example, "Emma, what do you think?" Or, "I think Emma made a great point." Each time you say their name, it creates a small dopamine response in their brain. By the end of the conversation, they'll simply feel that they like you, even if they can't explain why. The reason is simple. You used their name, and their brain interpreted it as, this person sees me. But don't overdo it. If you use someone's name in every sentence, it'll feel artificial and manipulative. In a 3 to 5 minute conversation, using their name just 2 or 3 times is more than enough. Using someone's name is powerful, but only when it feels natural. But it's not enough to remember someone's name. You also need to recognize how they're feeling in that moment. Because more than anything else, what people truly want is to feel understood. Name the emotion. Now I'm going to show you a technique that's almost never mentioned in communication videos, but it's one that even FBI hostage negotiators use. It's called labeling emotions. Most people don't express their emotions directly when they speak. They might say, "I'm having a hard time," when what they really mean is, "I feel overwhelmed and helpless." Or they might say, "I'm tired," when what they actually mean is, "I feel like no one understands me." There's always an emotion hidden behind the words, and when you recognize that emotion and put it into words, something remarkable happens. Chris Voss explains it this way. When you put the other person's emotions into words, the intensity of those emotions begins to decrease. At the same time, they start to feel, this person truly understands me. In practice, here's how you can use it. If someone is talking about a problem at work, say, "You seem really frustrated." If a friend tells you their plans were canceled, say, "That must have been really disappointing." If someone shares an achievement, simply say, "You must be really proud of accomplishing that." But pay attention to this. Don't phrase the emotion as a question. State it as an observation. Instead of asking, "Are you angry?" say, "You seem frustrated." That small difference is incredibly important. Questions often trigger defensiveness. "No, I'm not angry," but an observation signals empathy and makes the other person feel understood. This technique is so powerful that one study found when a person's emotions are put into words, activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for the stress response, decreases in a measurable way. You're only saying a single sentence, but you're creating a real physical change in the other person's brain. And what happens as a result? The other person feels safe and understood when they're with you. And that feeling is the number one reason people grow to like someone. Being funny, intelligent, handsome, or beautiful all comes second. Feeling truly understood always comes first. We've talked about empathy and making others feel understood. But what about the way we present ourselves? The pratfall effect. Why not being perfect makes you more likable. Now, I'm going to tell you something most people don't want to hear, but it's been scientifically proven. People tend to like those who are imperfect more than those who appear perfect. In 1966, psychologists conducted an experiment. Participants listened to a recording of a quiz contestant. The contestant was highly intelligent and answered most of the questions correctly. But in another version of the recording, the contestant accidentally spilled coffee on themselves, creating an awkward but funny moment. As a result, the contestant who spilled the coffee was liked significantly more than the one who didn't. They had the same intelligence and the same level of success. But that one small mistake made the contestant seem more human, and it increased people's empathy and affection toward them. This is called the pratfall effect, and the psychology behind it is simple. People who appear perfect often seem unapproachable. Our brains think, this person is different from me. They're out of my league, and we naturally keep our distance. But when that seemingly perfect person makes a small mistake, like being clumsy, sharing an embarrassing story, or revealing a minor weakness, our brain responds, oh, they're just like me. That's when we start feeling a genuine sense of connection. What does this mean in practice? Don't try to hide your imperfections. Be comfortable admitting small mistakes, clumsy moments, or things you don't know. Saying something like, I'm really not good at this, or I did something so ridiculous the other day, can lower the other person's defenses and make you seem more genuine and approachable. But there's one important detail. The pratfall effect only works when people already see you as basically competent or capable. In other words, you first need to demonstrate your value in some way. Then your small imperfections are what make you more relatable and likable. Earlier in the video, I said that talking about your own achievements can come across as arrogant. Here's the important distinction. Don't brag about your success yourself. Let your accomplishments or competence become known naturally. Then add a small imperfection on top of that. That's what makes you seem human, relatable, and genuinely likable. People who constantly make mistakes aren't seen as imperfect. They're seen as incompetent. The balance is simple. Be capable, but don't try to be perfect. Here's how you can apply this in a conversation. Show that you're knowledgeable about one topic. Then, when another topic comes up, say something like, I honestly don't know much about this. Tell me about it. You'll probably notice the other person's face relax. That's because you've removed the pressure of perfection, making them feel more comfortable too. We've accepted our imperfections and lowered the walls between us, but we may still be making one big mistake, talking too much. Now let's talk about the power of listening. In 2012, Diana Tamir and Jason Mitchell from Harvard University conducted an experiment, and what they discovered was remarkable. When people talked about themselves, the brain's reward center became active, the very same region that lights up when you eat delicious food or even earn money. In other words, talking about themselves is as rewarding to people as eating a great meal. So when you give someone that reward by genuinely listening to them, their brain begins to associate you with that positive feeling. They walk away thinking, I feel good when I'm with this person. But the real reason is simple. You truly listened to them. And that's exactly what most people do wrong. While the other person is talking, you're already thinking, what should I say next? Or how can I come up with an impressive response? That means you're not really listening. You're just waiting for your turn to speak. And the other person can feel that. So what does real listening actually look like? First, you need to send active listening signals. While the other person is speaking, gently nod your head. Say things like, I see, or really. Then use small follow-up prompts like, and then what happened? These simple responses send your brain the message, I'm listening, please keep going. Second, ask follow-up questions. This is one of the most powerful listening skills you can develop. Whenever someone tells you something, ask a question about what they just shared. If they say, I went to Italy, ask, which cities did you visit? If they say, I'm having problems at work, ask, what kind of problems? Tell me more. A follow-up question sends a powerful message. I didn't just hear you, I'm genuinely interested in you. Another study from Harvard University confirmed this. People who asked follow-up questions during conversations were liked significantly more than those who didn't. The effect was so strong that even in speed dating settings, people who asked follow-up questions were much more likely to get a second date. Third, use the summarizing technique. After the other person has shared something important, briefly summarize what you heard by saying something like, so what you're really saying is, This is a technique used by FBI negotiators, and it gives the other person the powerful feeling that you truly understand them. We've truly listened and activated the brain's reward center, but what if there's still a wall of ice between you and the other person? We've talked about truly listening and activating the brain's reward center, but what if there's still an invisible wall between you and the other person? That's where the Benjamin Franklin effect comes in. And finally, I'm going to share the most counterintuitive technique of all. It's called the Benjamin Franklin effect, and it works in a way that's completely opposite to what most people expect. Most people say, if you want someone to like you, do them a favor. It sounds logical, but Benjamin Franklin discovered the exact opposite. Benjamin Franklin had a political rival who constantly opposed him in the legislature. Instead of trying to win him over by doing him a favor, Franklin did the opposite. He asked the man for a favor. Franklin learned that the man owned a rare book and politely asked if he could borrow it for a few days. The man was surprised, but he agreed and sent the book. Franklin read it, returned it with a sincere thank you note, and from that point on, the man became one of Franklin's closest allies. You might be wondering, how is that even possible? The answer lies in cognitive dissonance. The other person's brain thinks, I just did this person a favor, but why would I do that? If I didn't like them, helping them wouldn't make sense, so I must actually like them. To resolve that inconsistency, the brain changes the feeling to match the action. This technique is incredibly powerful in everyday life as well. When you meet someone new, ask for a small favor, a pen, a recommendation, or simple directions. That tiny act of helping can trigger the other person's brain to think, I helped this person, so I must like them. But there's one more important rule. The favor should be small and easy to do. If you ask for something too big, the other person will feel pressured and pull away. Ask for something simple, like borrowing a pen, asking for a recommendation, or getting their opinion. Not something like, can you lend me 500 lira? And here's one more powerful detail. Asking for advice is especially effective. It puts the other person in the role of an expert, and people enjoy feeling knowledgeable. When you ask, what do you think about this? Or, I'd love your advice, their brain receives the message, this person values my opinion. That simple signal can instantly make them like you more. At the beginning of this video, I told you that most of the things you're doing to make people like you are actually having the opposite effect. Now you understand why. Being liked isn't about putting on a performance. When you try too hard to seem impressive, funny, or extraordinary, people don't see the real you. They see the mask you're wearing. And that mask creates distance between you and them. But everything you've learned in this video isn't about wearing a mask. It's about sending the right signals. You're simply becoming more aware of the signals your brain naturally communicates. A genuine smile, open body language, truly listening to others, remembering their name, or being comfortable with your imperfections. None of these are fake. They're all part of being a genuinely good person. You're simply learning how to express those qualities more consciously. Tomorrow, you're going to have a conversation with someone. It could be at work, at school, at the grocery store, or during a meeting. It doesn't matter. In that conversation, I want you to try just one thing. Truly listen while the other person is speaking, and ask one follow-up question. Something like, what happened next? How did that make you feel? Or what did you do after that? That's all. Then, at the end of the conversation, pay attention to the expression on the other person's face. Something will have changed. If you try it, leave a comment below telling me which technique you used and what happened. And if you have a technique that's worked well for you, share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear it, and it might help someone else too. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.